Toxic people do not always raise their voices or show obvious hostility. More often, they enter your life quietly and leave behind tension, confusion, and emotional fatigue before you even realize what has happened. That first feeling of discomfort is not a flaw in you, and it is not something to ignore. It is the earliest signal that your inner balance is being challenged, and the Stoic way to deal with toxic people without fighting begins by recognizing that signal without immediately reacting to it. Stoicism teaches that the moment you feel provoked is not the moment to act, but the moment to pause, because power starts with awareness, not response. Most people grow up believing that strength means confrontation, that self-respect must be defended outwardly, and that silence equals weakness. This belief is understandable, but it often leads people directly into the traps that toxic personalities rely on. When you confront impulsively, you give them your energy. When you explain yourself emotionally, you give them access. When you fight to be understood, you place your peace in their hands. Stoicism offers a different definition of strength, one rooted in inner order rather than outward dominance. The Stoic does not ask, "How do I stop this person?" The Stoic asks, "How do I remain stable regardless of this person?" That shift in focus is subtle, but it changes the entire dynamic. Toxic behavior is not always intentional cruelty. Often it comes from insecurity, unresolved frustration, or a need to feel significant. The Stoic does not waste energy judging motives, because motives are not required to make wise decisions. What matters is the pattern. If repeated interactions leave you feeling smaller, tense, distracted, or emotionally drained, then something in that interaction is misaligned. Stoicism is deeply practical. It does not require proof, confession, or confrontation to justify boundaries. It trusts the evidence of lived experience. When something repeatedly disrupts your inner calm, adjustment becomes necessary, not as punishment, but as preservation. One of the core Stoic principles is understanding the boundary between what you control and what you do not. You do not control another person's emotional maturity, self-awareness, or behavior. You cannot reason someone into respect if they are committed to imbalance. Fighting often comes from the illusion that intensity can force change. Stoicism dissolves this illusion. It teaches that the only sustainable control you have is over your own choices, your responses, and the meaning you assign to events. When you stop trying to manage others and start governing yourself, your energy returns to where it belongs. The Stoic way to deal with toxic people without fighting is built on restraint, not silence for its own sake, but restraint guided by clarity. Words are tools, not obligations. You do not owe immediate reactions, emotional explanations, or access to your inner world. Toxic people often thrive on urgency. They want answers now, reactions now, emotional engagement now. The Stoic slows the tempo. Responses become measured, engagement becomes selective. This change alone often disrupts unhealthy dynamics because it removes the emotional fuel they depend on. Many people confuse restraint with avoidance. Stoicism makes a clear distinction. Avoidance is driven by fear. Restraint is driven by discipline. The Stoic does not withdraw because they are afraid of conflict, but because they understand the cost of unnecessary conflict. Fighting with toxic individuals rarely produces clarity or resolution. More often, it creates ongoing mental noise. Conversations replay in the mind. Arguments are rehearsed internally. Emotional energy leaks long after the interaction ends. Stoicism values peace over proving a point, because peace is productive and points rarely are. Toxic people often test boundaries indirectly. They push slightly, then observe. They say something dismissive, then wait. They cross a line softly, then watch your reaction. If you react emotionally, they gain information. If you tolerate it silently without internal clarity, they advance. The Stoic response is neither emotional reaction nor silent endurance. It is adjustment. You change how much you share. You change how available you are. You change the tone of engagement. These changes are calm and consistent. Over time, consistency communicates more clearly than confrontation ever could. A Stoic also understands that not every misunderstanding needs correction. The desire to be understood can quietly trap you in endless explanation. Toxic dynamics often survive because one person keeps trying to clarify, justify, or defend themselves. Stoicism teaches that your values do not require constant explanation. If someone repeatedly misinterprets you in ways that drain you, the Stoic response is not louder clarity, but reduced exposure. You step back internally before you step back externally. This internal step is where true detachment begins. Another essential Stoic insight is that emotional discipline is learned, not innate. Calm is not something you are born with, it is something you practice. You notice irritation without feeding it. You feel frustration without acting from it. You sense anger without letting it speak for you. Each pause strengthens your internal authority. Toxic behavior loses power when it no longer controls your emotional timing. When you respond from choice rather than impulse, you reclaim sovereignty over your inner life. There is also wisdom in accepting limits without bitterness. Some people are not capable of healthy interaction, not because you failed, but because they are operating from unresolved inner conflict. Stoicism does not ask you to fix this or tolerate it indefinitely. It asks you to see it clearly. Acceptance does not mean approval, it means realism. When expectations align with reality, disappointment loses its grip, and emotional struggle fades. As you practice this approach, you may notice resistance. Toxic individuals often escalate when their usual methods stop working. They may provoke more directly, guilt subtly, or attempt to pull you back into emotional engagement. Stoicism prepares you for this phase. Escalation is not a sign that you are wrong. It is often a sign that old patterns are losing effectiveness. Calm consistency through this period is crucial. One emotional relapse can reopen the door. Steady restraint closes it quietly. Over time, the internal benefits become clear. Your mind grows quieter. You spend less time replaying conversations, less time preparing defenses, less time anticipating conflict. This quiet is not emptiness. It is reclaimed mental space. In that space, focus returns, creativity returns, direction returns. When you are no longer managing toxicity, you have energy for growth. Stoicism does not require dramatic exits or public declarations. Its power lies in repetition. Repeated clarity, repeated restraint, repeated alignment with your values. These repetitions compound over time. Toxic dynamics lose their grip not because you defeated someone, but because you no longer participate in what diminishes you. This is not passive, it is deliberate self-governance. The Stoic way to deal with toxic people without fighting ultimately teaches one lesson above all others. Your peace is not negotiable, and it does not need to be defended loudly to be protected effectively. When you stop fighting for calm and start living from it, everything reorganizes quietly around that standard. If this reflection brought clarity, take a moment to observe where your emotional energy has been going and whether it has been serving you. If you found value here, like the video, subscribe to Silent Power, and share it with someone who may need calm insight instead of conflict. True strength is rarely loud. It is steady, disciplined, and quietly unmovable.